What if our healing eras was just us just existing? Welcome back to All Our Parts. I am your host, Jasmine Proctor, and today we are going to talk about healing. I hope everybody's week is going really well. Mine's going okay. I record at the beginning of the week, and so, much of life hasn't really happened yet when I get on here. I was laying in bed last night, and I was like, we all talk about we're in our healing eras. We are healing girlies. We're in therapy. We're in the gym. Love, love, love it. I am in therapy. I am in the gym working on my fitness. And this often stems from living in a Western, very capitalist society where we are always expected to strive and be this best self, where we find ourselves feeling like we always have to strive, always have to want to heal, to know what our feelings are, to not be controlled by our emotions. But what if our healing eras was really just existing? What if our healing era was sitting in our feelings, feeling the feelings, and staying present? So let's just get into it. There is no better way to release my first episode but by calling myself out. And so I'm about to call myself out a little bit as I kind of talk about this, because I am constantly inviting people in my life to allow their feelings to take up space. I'm like, whether you're feeling happy, like joy, sadness, grief, I am like, y'all take up all the space you need. It does not matter what anyone else feels about it. It doesn't matter what anybody else says about it. Now, when it comes to my feelings, I make sure that my feelings take up the least amount of space. And that is so hard to admit, honestly. And it's so hard for me to even wrap my head around that, because that's a kind of a new realization. But I make sure that my feelings are taking up the least amount of space in the room. And so if I'm feeling upset, if I am feeling down, if something has hurt me, I kind of like take a second to process it. And I always think people are meeting me with the best intentions, because I am meeting them with the best intentions. And so it takes a couple days later for me, like, girl, that what they just said was fucked up. Like, that was hurtful. And so I'll mull on it, and I'll be like, you know what, Jasmine, like. And it takes me a second to get to where I am actually feeling what I am feeling. And that's largely because I don't allow my feelings to take up space. And I will go as far as to say that sometimes I don't feel like my feelings are deserving of that. And that largely comes from my upbringing. Like, I didn't grow up in a space. It's so hard for me to talk about my present experiences without acknowledging why I experience them the way that I do, and not talk about my family and my upbringing. So as I continue this journey, as I continue releasing episodes, you will learn so much about my family. You will learn so much about me, and you just got to stay tuned. But for the sake of this episode, I didn't really have parents that allowed me to fully process something that I'm feeling. Like, I remember growing up hearing phrases like, oh, that's not something you need to cry over, or even worse, I'll give you something to cry about, which is absolutely traumatic. And I hope that new generation parents can take that phrase out of your vocabulary, because that's not comforting. That doesn't mean that the feeling that the person is feeling will go away because you can undo a worse feeling. Like, parents, please stop saying that. I am begging you. But I remember growing up, and I dropped my boombox and I broke my favorite Mariah Carey CD, and I was hurt. I was furious. I was 10 singing We Belong Together like I just divorced my 20-year husband. Like, I was living for this album. And I remember like feeling so upset, and my mom was like, it's not that big of a deal. Like, it's not something to cry about. And to me, no, I mean, you can buy another Mariah Carey CD, but it's the fact that I broke it. And yes, I was upset about that, and I was allowed to be upset about that. And that's just one very small example of times in my life, especially around like my family, where I just felt like my feelings didn't matter and what I had said didn't really matter. I guess you could constitute me as the golden child, and everyone thinks that like that means that it's this perfect child who does everything she's supposed to be. She's done everything she's told. And yes, I did everything I was told, and I did everything that I was supposed to do. I went to church like I thought I was supposed to do, and none of it meant anything as I've grown older, because all it left me was feeling this need to please everyone in my life and not myself. And I relied so much on other people's opinions that I did not weigh my own opinion as heavily. And so again, as we brush on these things, understand, like, I will definitely go into depth in other episodes, but being the golden child also meant that I needed to neglect my own feelings so that other people could feel comfortable around me, so that my family could feel comfortable around me. And so growing up and making friends was just really tough. It was really challenging because I didn't know how to connect with other people, because I wasn't connected to my feelings. I wasn't connected to how something made me feel. And that included stuff like that made me happy and made me feel joy. And so I remember in high school, I would always get knocked for my super monotone voice, and that still does happen in my present day. If I, am nervous about something, or even if I'm talking about something, and I'll be like, yeah, I had a really good time. And they're like, did you really have a good time? And I'm like, yeah, like superb. Like, I'm afraid to be like, hell yeah, I had a wonderful time. I can't wait to see you again. That was the best day of my life. And so I am learning right now, keyword learning, because this is a very ever-present lesson in my life. I am learning that my feelings deserve space as well. And I often get frustrated with the people in my life, and sometimes feel like, oh, they don't value me because, they're not seeing me. Well, Jasmine, you're not allowing them to see you. You're only showing one fraction of yourself. You're only showing one version of yourself that you think is palatable, that you think makes other people comfortable. And as a result, you're sitting there very uncomfortable. You're sitting there like, God, I wish this person could understand me better. I wish that this person could understand me on a deeper level. Well, Jasmine, I'm sure they'd love to if you let them. And so I would say I, carry a pretty, I have a friend that used the word stoic. So I'll use that word, like a pretty stoic demeanor. Like, it's rare that I will immediately emotionally react to something. It takes me a little bit to process and understand how I'm feeling. But sometimes I just want to fucking blow up over shit. Like, that fucking hurt. That really upset me. And I don't allow myself to do that. And partially I'm terrified, because I'm like, if other people see me like that, they're not going to want to stick around. Like, who wants to be around all that? Even when I'm sitting in my own ick, my own very painful feelings, I'm like, I'm going to isolate, because no one wants to be around that. No one wants to be around that girl. And I'm like, no, Jasmine, like, you are human. And you would want the people closest to you to allow you in. And it's not fair. If you say you want to build deeper friendships, it's not fucking fair to withhold from those around you. This year, 2023, in general, has been an ebb and flow year. I mean, I have felt joy, I have felt happiness, but goddamn, I have felt some painful shit that I do not wish for anybody. And I tend to kind of play it down a little bit. Oh, I'm fine. They're like, yeah, Jasmine, what are you up to? I'm like, oh, in bed, playing on my iPad. Like, and no one can read. And I don't expect people to read the context behind that. Like, what if I just said, I'm having a tough week. I'm depressed. Getting up out of bed is the best I can do today. And what if I allowed the people closest to me to respond with empathy? What if I allowed my feelings to take up space as well, rather than holding it in, pretending, and then it blows up in my face later on? And it doesn't blow up in my face because I had a friend dismiss me. It blew up in my face because I am shoving it down. I'm shoving it all the way down. And then now I've hit this explosive moment where it's overwhelming. It's painful. And I've become my own worst critic. And I'm curled up in a ball listening to Florence and the Machines and Lana Del Rey on repeat. Like, really going through it. And honestly, I could probably avoid that if I just said to somebody, hey, I could really use a friend right now. I could really use your support. And I have some good ass friends, let me tell you. Like, I'm sure if I sent that, and I have evidence of it too. I know if I sent it, the people in my life would show up. And it's mostly me not allowing the people in my life to show up for me and to communicate honestly. I'm a pretty good judge of character, and so I would say in the last couple of years there's only a small number of people that I've misread, or we had a conflict and couldn't work through it because I couldn't either own my shit or B, completely misread the situation, and it just kind of fizzled out. And so part of that is, as you heal and grow, you kind of learn how does it look to have someone in your life after you've lost touch and things like that. And it takes work. And there's a lot of factors that kind of go into that. But I'm getting sidetracked. Anyway, I have people in my life who would show up for me. And I encourage you to evaluate if you have people in your life that would show up for you, and kind of ask yourself, what stops me from sharing myself with them in that way? What stops me from allowing my feelings to take up a little space? Because if you're worried about ruining somebody else's day, my response today to that is fuck their day. Fuck it. I think anyone that loves you and cares about you and wants to see you be the best version of yourself also should be there to support you when you're feeling like the worst version of yourself. And I'm not saying that has to be everybody, because we place friendships where we have different friends for different things. But your inner people, the people that you go to on a daily basis to, celebrate your wins with, God, I hope you can feel like you can grieve your losses, to sit in those icky feelings and allow that to be it, for it to not be a performance. The performance of hiding my feelings has not only separated me from the people around me, but it's honestly just fucking burnt me out. And then I hit this wall where I'm like, God, I'm exhausted. I'm wearing this mask all the time. I'm constantly hiding myself from everybody, rather than saying, you know what? I'm having a shitty ass day. I hate this day. It sucks. And keep going. But when I don't acknowledge it, that's when it lasts forever, and a shitty day turns into a shitty week, and then it's a shitty month. And I'm like, no, I want to feel better. It doesn't have to be this way. But I torture myself. And I might say that a few times. I torture myself. I am the biggest contributor to my own suffering. And that's not to take responsibility away from people who have treated me like shit. But that's to say, Jasmine, you ultimately sometimes make choices that if you did things a little differently, you'd be shocked at the outcome. In psychology, exposure therapy. You gotta, spiders. If you're afraid of spiders, it doesn't just start with like literally touching a spider. Like you maybe look at a picture of a spider or think about a spider and you sit with that and you process that. I think it's the same way with sharing our feelings with people. You say, had a shitty day, and see how they respond to it. God, this is the worst fucking week ever. See how they respond to it. Now, if you get a little pushback or you get an odd response from them, be like, okay, maybe this isn't like someone that I can really share my feelings with. But if it's someone that's like closest to you and they don't maybe respond in the way that you were hoping, 9 times out of 10, something is up with them. Maybe. And that's where you check in and you maybe set a boundary, be like, I cannot hold space for your stuff too right now. And let's kind of talk about it at a later date. I love communication. I love that when we can communicate with our friends, communicate what we need, communicate, whatever, and have that. I think it just deepens friendship so much when we can be honest with one another. And I could do a much better job of being completely honest with those closest to me. Lately I've been kind of saying like choosing vulnerability where it matters. And that's mostly to protect myself, but also it's helping me be conscientious of choosing vulnerability where it matters. Like telling a friend, hey, I'm thinking of you, or I love you and you add so much value to my life. I don't think I'm doing myself any favors by hiding how I feel about anything. Or, hey, this happened and you know what? I own it. I'm so sorry. I own my part in that, and I want to see how we can move forward. Like I don't know. I don't think anyone is doing anyone favors when we hide something. I'm not like a proponent of ghosting. I'm not a proponent of a lot of things that ultimately are derived either out of feelings of shame or cowardice. That's just my opinion on the matter. I think that we share as much as we feel safe to share. And just like exposure therapy, you do it a little bit at a time. And then eventually you'll find people who you can be like, you know what? Shit has really hit the fan in my life and I need your support. And God, that is so vulnerable. That is so real. Like the day that I can get to that point naturally without feeling like a burden, without feeling like I'm taking something away from somebody's day, the day that I can do that, oh my God, freedom, true freedom. But I invite my friends to do the same thing. My friends do the same thing. They're like, God, Jasmine, I'm having a shitty ass week. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about it or not talk about it. I can distract you. I can be funny. Let's get a drink. Let's get breakfast. Let's get coffee. Let's go for a walk. I am allowed to do the same thing. And I am allowed to allow the people in my life to show up for me and not assume that I am a burden or start drawing my own conclusions to how I think somebody will respond. And typically that response that I'm expecting is full on rejection. Or, you know what, Jasmine, I've seen a lot. I've seen what I needed to see and it's way too much. That's what I expect, rather than allowing people to just respond and work off of the evidence that I have versus the evidence that I have created in my mind. And so if you're in Healing Girl Summer, I'm more of a fan of Rat Girl Summer, Feral Girl Summer, but I think all of that is a part of the healing journey. It's allowing your feelings to exist. It's allowing your feelings to take up space. It's allowing to see your feelings as not something that needs to be fixed, that needs to be dismissed. There's no caveat to your feelings. This hurt, period. This made me really happy, period. And you don't have to justify that to anybody, because fuck them. They don't live your life. They're not you. They don't wake up in your body, in your skin at all. Only you can decide how something feels for you, how something sits with you, how a feeling sits with you, and create, cultivate, and find those people that are safe to share that with. I have not always been that person that shares openly, and I certainly have not always been that person that responds to someone's feelings in the best way that I could have. And I own that, and I wake up every day and try to be better. I do. And I think part of being better is holding myself accountable to the times that I didn't do that. It's holding myself accountable right here, right now, and saying, I do not allow my feelings to take up space. And it is not fair to encourage others to share that same vulnerability with me when I don't do it for them. Oh my God, that's just not fair. It's not fair. And I owe the people closest to me in my life, I owe them that. They deserve that because they are wonderful, wonderful, wonderful people. And I'm sure you have people in your life that would welcome you with open arms and sit in it with you. They don't want to fix it. They don't want you to fix it. I don't even want my friends to fix it. I just want to be in it for a second and to say, you know what, this really hurt. This really sucked. And I could use your support. I've been working on it and I've been doing it this week, this year. This 2023 has kind of forced me to step out of my comfort zone and say, I'm not doing so hot. And the nice thing is that my friends, they respect that, and we can talk about it as much or as little as we want to. It's not something that needs to be sat in. They don't look at me any differently. Hell, they don't treat me any differently either. It just is what it is that week or that month or that day. And the next day we move on. And the next day they have a breakdown, and we hold space for the two, to exist. I think the beauty of feelings is that they ebb and flow. They're not constant. They're not these fixed things. I can feel happiness and an hour later cry over a rerun of Grey's Anatomy. I can feel sad and then laugh at my favorite rerun of Bob's Burgers. Love that show. It's one of my comfort shows. I highly recommend. Grey's Anatomy is also wonderful. But recognizing that feelings also coexist. There is no feeling that exists that I think are mutually exclusive. I think you can be in a time of grief and you can show gratitude for the things that are around you. I would say right now, I think over the last 6 months, I am in a space of, grief. I think grieving people, grieving a life and stepping into a new one. And I can absolutely celebrate where I'm headed and also acknowledge that there are some things that have just absolutely hurt, and losing parts of myself that honestly are better off gone anyway. But I'm constantly grieving the person that I could have been, who I have been, where I'm going. And it's all a journey. It's all a process. And I invite you to go through that process with me. I invite you to loop in those closest to you and say, I'm on this journey and I hope that you can meet me halfway. And if they can't, that's okay. That's not a reflection of you. That is not a reflection of the wonderful person that you are. And that's not to say that later on you all can't re-meet and chat and catch up. But as you grow, as you change, as you evolve, as your life shifts and changes, it is tough, but you can't do it alone. I certainly can't do it alone. I would not have gotten through this year without the people in my life. You need people. We need people. And to continue building depth with people, we've got to share our feelings. So I'm in my healing era. My healing era still does involve therapy, but it also involves allowing me to sit in my feelings and learning on calling on other people to sit in my feelings with me. Because we can celebrate the good times. We all love a good time, but I want a couple people that I can sit in my bad times with too, who will show up. And that is the beauty of life. That is the beauty of friendship, is that there are people that will do that for me. There are people that will do that for you. And you are so worthy and you are deserving. And if your mind is telling you right now that you're not, I'm here to remind you that you are worthy. You are deserving of love, of care, of being shown up for, because you're a rock star. And so I think that's all I got for today. I think the overall message is healing girl summer is existing with our feelings and allowing others to exist in our feelings with us. Like I said in my first episode, I want us to be better advocates. I want us to be learning in the ways that make sense to us. So I will be linking and connecting you all to resources where you can learn information and continue educating yourself, because life is scary right now. I don't know about y'all, but it's giving what it's not supposed to give. And so today's shout out is for the BASF, and they essentially focus on climate change. The air has been smoky, the air quality has been awful, and we are inhaling it in our lungs. So we need to really read up on our climate change. So their website is just a broad stroke of climate change. It's a climate change resource where you can learn sustainability efforts, where money is going to build a future that's built on sustainability, and learning about the innovations that are available and ones that are being worked on. It is so important for us to think about ways that we can protect our environment and take better care of our environment, because clearly there are people that are not going to do it for us. So we have to take matters into our own hands and get educated. I do not know enough about climate change, and so I am here learning with you as well. We are in this together. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you next week. Peace.